This video and the downloadable checklist in the show notes on YouTube can save you some serious money, so please watch to the end and download the checklist to help you save some money on your Medicare insurance premiums. Hey, before we get going, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you know when new videos come out. And for the rest of you that have been watching, thank you very much for the positive feedback you give me. I absolutely appreciate that. Those go a long way. But more importantly than that, remember to share these things. We need to get these words out to the pilot group and our even our friends. Help get the word out. So share these videos if you can. And again, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you know when new videos come out. I'm Dan Lohmar, CFP professional with United Wealth Management, where we specialize in PR management and financial planning for pilots at United Airlines. And like many of you, my business partner, Alan Bewley, and I are both pilots for United. Welcome to another video. One last thing, and that is if you're coming up in retirement, this stuff is not your cup of tea, or you just want some assistance with it so you know you don't miss anything. Hey, let's sit down and talk informally about what that process looks like, especially when it comes to generating a customized, personalized retirement income plan. Nobody wants to outlive their money, but at the same time, you deserve to enjoy your money. So you don't want to just be sipping off it. There are ways to optimize income so that and adjust income so that you're enjoying it and you don't have to live with the worries of outliving it either. So hey, if you want to talk about something like that, shoot me an email, dan@unitedwealthmanagement.com. I'll be glad to do that. So this video is number 5 in my series on medical insurance planning, retirement medical insurance costs and planning. And we're talking about Medicare surcharges on this video is what we're talking about. Now, if you remember back a couple of videos ago, I talked about just various medical costs and what your medical costs might be in retirement. And one of those was IRMA. Okay, so you've got Medicare costs, Medicare Part B and Part D is what you're going to be paying for. But if your income is above a certain amount, modified adjusted gross income, if it's above a certain amount, then you're going to get charged surcharges for that. And they call it the IRMA cliff because if you're only $1 above that amount, it's not progressive like taxes are. It is you're paid. You have to pay the entire surcharge for that. So there are ways that you can prevent that, and that's what this video is about. That's what we're talking about, and it's by filing this form called SSA-44, and it's basically an appeal form so that they can lower your Medicare charges. Now, how does this work? Why does it happen? When the Social Security Administration looks at your income to determine your Medicare costs, they look at 2 years prior. So it's 2021. If you're going to be filing Medicare in 2021, they're looking at your income from 2019. And they're using your income to make all your calculations. So if you made really, really good money in 2019 and not such good money in 2021, they're going to look at your 2019 income to determine what your IRMA, your Medicare and your IRMA charges are going to be. And they're going to apply that to you. Well, guess what? You retired in 2021, so maybe you're not making the same amount of money. So you had a life event. That's a qualifying event for these things. So that's the reason we file SSA Form 44. It is an appeal, and that's what the checklists are about, and that's why we do it. I have in the show notes, again, the checklist and the YouTube in the flowchart kind of help you go through that for yourself and determine what you need to do. So when do you do this? So you're going to file for Medicare. Now let's just say you do it in July, you file for Medicare. And then shortly after you file for Medicare, they're going to send you a Medicare, I believe it's called a Medicare determination letter. And then on that letter, it tells you what tax year they use to look at your modified adjusted gross income to determine your Medicare amount. And then also that's when they tell you, hey, this is what we're going to end up charging you when you end up paying the premiums for it. So after you get that back is when you can file SSA-44. If you do it before that, it's going to be confusing because there's nothing on file. They haven't run any numbers or done any calculations or anything like that for you yet. So it doesn't really do any good to file it early. So you're going to wait until you get your determination letter back from the Social Security Administration. You do have to do this for yourself and your spouse because filing Medicare is an individual event, and therefore you're going to have to file 2 of these, one for each of you. And it has to be for a life-changing event. So that's going to be things, like retiring. Okay, that's the biggest one. That's pretty much what we're talking about. There's a couple others on there, but basically what they all amount to is a reduction in income. Now you do have to prove that, and it'll say you have to attach a letter or some form of proof that you're doing this. And what most pilots do, and what they're saying works, is that you get a letter from the chief pilot's office saying, hey, this person is retiring on such and such date, it's mandatory retirement, so on and so forth. And from what I have heard, that most of the administrators in the chief pilot offices, all the domiciles, are pretty much familiar with doing this. Since there's a lot of folks retiring nowadays. So this is not, it won't be the first time they've heard this request. So they get this letter, and that's part of filing that appeal. And there's some other questions. There's some instructions for filling out SSA44. And you just follow the instructions and file it. Now, what I've heard is just best practices is walk this thing into your local Social Security office. Walk it in and file it with them, because I believe that's where they make the determination. Is they'll do that stuff. So look at all your information. They determine. I don't think it's on the spot. They'll file a letter, or they'll get back to you with a letter, and then they will look at what you say your new income is going to be for that year, and then they'll determine it from there. Now, it doesn't always go through. Okay, so one of the things I've heard folks do is that, well, if you don't like the answer, ask another person. So I've heard you can take the entire appeal form and resubmit it to another local Social Security office. So maybe you go to your local one and you can drive 20 miles down the road, there's another Social Security Administration office. You might be able to refile it there. I don't know that they will actually walk you through the steps of filing this thing and telling what you need to do. I don't really know that for sure. All I know is you can take it in, you can fill it out, and you follow those things. And again, so be persistent. It doesn't always go through the first time. And again, if you don't like the first answer, refile it with somebody else. But be persistent if you know that you deserve it because your income is going to be lower. It's pretty obvious, especially if you retire in the first part of the year and you're not making that much money through United. It's got to be fairly obvious that your income's been lowered. If you're retiring later in the year, say like in October, it may not be as obvious that your income's being lowered because, again, you have to put on that form what you expect your income to be for that year. And if you work 10 months out of the year, it still might be above the IRMAA threshold. Now, let's just say that you're making good income and you're not going to reduce it all the way to there's no IRMAA charges. But let's just say they look at your original income in 2019 and they're going to be, you're going to be in like the third IRMAA bracket. Hey, you can still file this thing and you can still get a couple you might get lowered down to like one IRMAA level. So you're only paying one level of surcharges. Because again, remember with the surcharge, there's different levels to it. Okay, if you exceed the first amount, that's called your first IRMAA charge, and there's another income level, and there's another surcharge on top of that. So there's 3 or 4 levels to this thing. So again, you might, instead of getting it all the way down to the base level where there's no IRMAA charges, you still might be able to reduce it a couple levels. And then the other thing about it too is this is not a one-time event. So think to yourself that every November they reissue a determination letter as to what your Medicare expenses are going to be for the following year. So this November, you would get a letter from Medicare saying, hey, this is what we believe your Medicare expenses are going to be. This is what we're going to charge you for 2022, and it's based on your 2020 income. And so think about it. Hey, they're looking at my 2020 income. Again, I made more than X amount. I'm going to be paying these surcharges. So again, refile it again. It has to be done every year that we're looking at income from before the life event happened. It may have to be done 2 or possibly 3 times. So that's the thing about it. I've heard stories where somebody filed this thing, it went through the first time, and then they did not refile, and then they got charged the higher amount. They didn't pay the higher amount because they were approved the first time, and then they lost their Medicare benefits. So you don't want that to happen, so just stay on top of it. The one thing you don't want to do is argue with them by underpaying. Pay whatever they're telling you to pay, appeal it, and then it'll come back to you. So that's one way to do it, is by filing SSA44. Now, once they get into the year where their look back is after the life-changing event and your income is too high, your retirement income is actually above the base amount, and you're actually paying IRMAA charges, you can't do anything about it then. There's no more life-changing event that happened before and after the time period they're looking at your tax return. So basically at that point, your income is just too high. So what can you do from that thing? And where this really affects people is if they start taking required minimum distributions, and sometimes those RMDs can put you into a higher modified adjusted gross income brackets. That's usually what happens. And how can you reduce those things? Well, you can do that through Roth conversions. That might be an applicable strategy. Otherwise, you just might be stuck in higher Medicare charges. It's hard to tell, and it's very person and couple specific. So 2 things that are going to help you out here are that I've got those checklists down low. One's down below. One's a flow chart that's going to help you determine what your 2021 Medicare and IRMA charges are going to be, and the other one is basically just a checklist, kind of a facts, frequently asked questions about what to expect from your IRMA charges and your filing SSA Form 44. So that's all I've got for you. Remember to download those two things from the show notes in YouTube. And remember, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share these videos. We really do need to get these the word out. Share the videos with our fellow pilots so that people can be informed. This stuff is not that known. And the other thing about it, too, is I just talked to another retired pilot not long ago. You know, one of the biggest things he had to add was be persistent. If you're filing a SSA44, be persistent. He got turned down 1 or 2 times. But finally it went through and he got his IRMA charges reduced. So it's good to know. Let's spread the word. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, fly safe.